Hey friends, I'm Kenzie, and I'll be reading a scary story from Reddit today. This story is from user Lenster87. It's called Haunted House, 400 plus years old, and other stories. Hi, thought I'd share some stories I've experienced. Most are from a house I used to live in as a teenager, and there are a few others. They are also not necessarily scary, but definitely paranormal. The house I lived in was a thatched roofed house in the UK. Thatched? Thatched? Okay. It was the oldest house in the town, at over 400 years old. There was a cemented up hole in the cellar, which was originally a tunnel to the local church, which was used for something to do with priests escaping during a time of persecution. Excuse my lack of history knowledge here. Probably Protestant versus Catholic clash of some sort. General eerie vibe when alone in the house. Not negative, but very bizarre. Once, my parents went on a holiday and I watched the pets. Being 15, I had a lot of friends over to begin with, all just drinking and getting high, but once the hype died down and I was at home alone, I didn't go upstairs for over a week. Slept on the couch next to the dog's bed in the hope that he would be an early alarm of any paranormal activity. There used to be a pamphlet in the local church with information about the town that had a paragraph about the history of the house. Sadly, I don't remember much about that, other than at one point the building was something to do with a dairy? I don't know if they messed this up, but whatever. And at another point, early in its history, there was a fire which burnt a large section of the building. The first weird story happened the first day we moved in. Being a teenager in the early 2000s, my focus was making sure the TV and entertainment setup was sorted out, so I had put all the DVDs and VHS tapes in a cupboard behind the TV as my first self-appointing task. This cupboard was empty when I put the various DVD boxes, etc. in there. The next day, I'm in the living room unpacking stuff, and my mom asked me what the hell was in the cupboard. Not knowing what she meant, I walked over and see something on the floor in the cupboard. I pick it up, and it's an extremely rusted/corroded and perished rabbit trap. If you don't know what that looks like, it's like a bear trap with the jaws that snap shut, but smaller. My mom seemed kinda weirded out, but brushed it off. I know that cupboard was empty when I put all that stuff in there, and my dad had been taking the big stuff upstairs, not bits into the living room, and he had no idea where it came from. I have no explanation whatsoever for how that could just appear. Bear this in mind for the other events, though. The next one is funny but paranormal nonetheless. We had stone-tiled floor in the living room. My little bro was about 6 months old, maybe 1 year, barely crawling, so we had a big rug we used to roll out for him. Over the week, this would pick up dog hair from my dog, who would molt like hell, and so we had to hoover this rug like fuck just to keep on top of it. One day, Mom had asked me to make sure I hoover the rug before I went out with my friends. It was my only task, and I forgot to do it. I get home that evening and said hi to Mom, who enthusiastically thanked me for the fantastic job I'd done hoovering the rug for her. I instantly shat myself thinking, oh fuck, she's pissed she's in sarcastic mode. I start apologizing for not doing it, and she just looks puzzled and asks me what I'm talking about. The rug is perfect. I go into the living room and see this rug looking like it's been cleaned with a fine-tooth comb to remove all the dog hair. I tell her I didn't do it and that I'm sorry, but I have no idea how the rug is clean. I'm absolutely stunned but grateful nonetheless at this point. My dad had not been home and certainly wouldn't have stopped in to randomly hoover a rug. So again, a very bizarre incident. What happened? Did a ghost use the fucking vacuum? Did whatever it was just vaporize the dog hair somehow? The mind baffles. It seems such an irrelevant story, but the fact I know it happened still gets me. The next one is again bizarre, but it was the first one that scared me because it was so specific. My parents were out and I had to walk the dog that day. I decided to leave by the back door but not lock it. Good place to live. Still, being a paranoid stoner, I decided I needed to hide the door keys. This bunch of keys also had the master key for my parents' car, which thanks to Alfa Romeo at the time would cost €1,000+ to replace it if lost. so I decided to hide these keys well. I found a cloth bag used for holding coins and change and put them in there. I then hid this bag behind some books on a bookshelf. I took the dog out, got home, forgot about it, and went to play Vice City. Mom and Dad get home that evening and ask where the car keys are. I tell them in the bag behind the books on the shelf. They can't find them. I cockily think I've hidden these keys so well that my parents can't find them, so I go swanning downstairs thinking I'm the Mac Daddy. I then go get the bag off the shelf, only to find there are no keys in there, and my heart just fucking sinks. Instantly, I'm convinced someone has watched me through a window somehow and has come inside and stolen the keys. There is no other thing that could have happened. My parents assumed I'm too stoned and have forgotten and misplaced them, and get angry that I've lost this expensive car key, and insist that I search the house. But my heart is still sinking because I know there is no point in looking under the cushions or the sofa or behind the drawers because I put those keys in that bag. I half-heartedly look around the house, feeling upset, not knowing what to do, also thinking some thief can take our car or break into the house at any time and it's my fault. About 30 minutes after my parents' swearing, my dad shouts from upstairs that he has found them, in the back pocket of a pair of jeans under the bed in their bedroom. My parents look freaked, but just brushed it off. I'm super freaked at this point, with zero fucking idea of how this happens. I was super relieved to not have lost the keys, but that made me realize that whatever that thing/those things doing this were, they were able to interact with physical objects in strange ways. I don't know how to describe it better than that. Apart from that, several times I heard conversations at night below my bedroom, but that room was an empty spare room. My bedroom door burst open at night on a few occasions, shocking me awake. This literally scared the fucking shit out of me. A strange coincidence was at a party one night, age 16, and getting talking to some friends of friends. We are all sharing ghost stories. I shared mine, and then these two brothers had stories about this house that they'd lived in, which had paranormal activity. It sounded worse than my house. The conversation carried on, and it turned out that they lived the same fucking house I was living in about 4 years ago to my parents buying it. Things never got as bad as the brothers described, but I'll never forget that moment we realized we were talking about the same house. When I lived at this property, it was the first and only time I think I saw a ghost, but strangely enough, it was not in the property. I had taken the dog out for a walk on the usual route, which took a path through some local woods. The path was one of those raised wood walkways, which weaved through forest and mildly boggy terrain. This was a path I had walked many times before, and sometimes felt a bit off-key, but put it down to paranoia. This particular day, it was around 6 p.m. in summer, so it was still light. My dog stopped at the very start of the trail to take a shit, so I stood waiting and looking around at the woods. I look down the trail and something catches my eye. At first it looks like branches moving in the wind, and I'm squinting trying to make out what it is, and I'm sure it's branches moving, so I look away. When I look back up the trail, it looks like the branches are closer, so I'm moving around a bit, trying to get a better look. The dog is still having a shit. I take a step forward, and into focus, I see 3 women wearing old-style bell-bottom dresses, side by side with their arms linked, moving at pace towards me. It was hard to describe. They were whitish translucent, but still detailed enough for me to see that they were women in old clothes from a distance of probably 100 to 150 meters away, and they were moving fast. I'd always wanted to see a ghost, but the instant my brain realized what I was seeing, any previous ideas on what I thought I wanted soon dissipated into the fumes of dog shit I was inhaling. I bolted, dragging the dog who was still having a shit. This all happened in about 10 seconds. And I ran until I got to the main road. I got home, and my mom said I looked pale and asked if I was okay. She believed me, but looked more freaked out than me once I told her, so she didn't mention it again. I can still see it play it out in my head, and I always remember how scary it was thinking you were actually seeing something that shatters what you know about life. A weird story I have from a friend of mine involves his mom's house. It's probably a 40-year-old house, but the local area is all old Saxon land. Lots of marking stones around the place. His front yard had a tree that was very old and rumored to have been used for hanging at some point. He had a lot of incidents of items moving or disappearing, hearing voices, hearing footsteps, etc. I wasn't there for this event, but my friend and 3 other friends were at his place, and I arrived about 5 minutes after to find them all looking shell-shocked, in deep discussion, moving around the room. They were all sat watching TV when the wire on the telephone started to lift up in front of them, and then began to twist around and float in the air. One of them noticed first, and then asks if he's going crazy, and asks if anyone else sees it, and then the others notice. It does this for about 10 seconds or so before dropping to the floor. The discussion I walked into was them opening doors and windows, trying to recreate a gust of air to mimic the movements the phone wire made, but they couldn't. It was weird to walk into a room and see 4 people you know and trust having that conversation, because I knew they weren't lying. It's something that still gets brought up in conversations every few years. Another house I lived in had an odd vibe. There was old suitcases of clothes and old tat from residents in the attic from who knows when, but I remember there was a bus pass or passport of an older guy lying around. I'm 99% certain he's a ghost that stole a 10 bag of weed off of me here. It's easy to stereotypically say that I was probably Highland lost it, but at the same time in my life, I knew exactly where every 0.01 G of bud I owned was. Laugh emoji. I went to bed with this bag on the table at the foot of my bed, and when I woke up it was gone. I routed around and tore the place apart and didn't find it. The day I moved out of the house, I thought I'm finally going to find that bud. I didn't. I remember standing in my empty bedroom and saying something like, "That wasn't yours, I hope you enjoyed it." I went downstairs with the last bits, and then when returning to the top floor to the empty spare room, next to my room, all I could smell was intense old beer smell. There was no beer spilled up there, so I took that as a sign of some old guy's ghost who liked to drink, who probably thought he'd try the herbal remedies for a change. A friend stayed the night in that spare room and woke up in the middle of the night to see an old guy in full golfing clothes stood staring at him. He jumped up screaming, turned on the light, and he was gone. That's my ghostly paranormal experiences. Like I said, not the scariest stories, but still weird as fuck. Alright, and that's the stories today. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.